No, she doesn't. Yours too? My goodness.
Who's on your feet? Frozen?
Frozen. Awesome.
I figured nobody like from the library for each other.
What do you mean at least we have? You have friends, members, you have staff members. I know. Can you believe her? She's great. She really is.
Robert? How are you? Good. I gotta tell you, as I was signing Bob, Jim, and John. I'm just kidding. Oh, you're right. Oh my God, mine syncs almost exactly with that. That's amazing. Everyone ready? Yeah. Fantastic. We got a full house. We're ready to rock and roll. We will call the Tuesday, January 14th, 2020 City Council meeting to order and we'll start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. So, if we get a roll call, please.
Coke?
Here.
Transier?
Here.
Mashewski? Here. Clocher?
Here.
Funkhauser?
Here.
Frieders?
Here.
Chirulis?
Here.
Peterson?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. First meeting of the year. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you all had a good Christmas and New Year's and our holidays that you celebrate. It's kind of fun to be back. I'm out of the I'm not quite polished because I got a 1 month hiatus, but we're gonna figure this out real quick. I gotta tell you a quick story. I know you're not gonna hear a story, but so I heard this story, so it's not, if I can get the facts inaccurate, I apologize. But so a friend of mine was telling me how their neighbor had a rabbit, a bunch of rabbits, and one day the dog comes home with one of the rabbits, and it was all covered with dirt, and the rabbit's dead. And they're like, oh my God. So like, what do we do? Well, the neighbor's out of town, so they clean the rabbit off and they put it back in the rabbit cage. And then the neighbors come home about 3 days later, and all of a sudden, they hear this shriek. Ah! They go, what's wrong? Well, our rabbit died, we buried it in the ground, and we come home and it's back in the cage. Just a joke, it was just a joke. Got it off the internet. Right now, it's just be something to like today. Such a serious weekend. So, yes, thank you very much. So we have a couple things I'd like to do. I would like to amend the agenda. We have a park board request to rename one of the parks, or actually name one of the parks in Window Ridge. I'd like to move that up to mayor's report, if that's okay. And that looked like Mr. Peters made a motion to amend the agenda. And there was a second by somebody over there. Ken, okay. Any other changes to the agenda? All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Excellent. Okay, so now we start out, this is awesome. First meeting of the year, we get sworn a new police officer. So Alexander Jordan and Chief Jensen, who else is coming up? Ray Bear, are you both coming up? Sure. And Bob Johnson, I was forgetting Bob. Bob's actually one who does all the work, isn't he? Chris, or everyone? Oh, he already sworn in. Do you want to do the ceremonial one? Yeah, I figured you'd like that. Do I have anything good for you? You just have something here. I just read this. So wait, what's the best way? Is this family out here? Yeah. You want to come closer for the pictures? You can. You don't have to if you're embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed. He's a cop. Don't be embarrassed. This is Yorkville. Yorkville's a good city. Congrats. And you started next January 6th? Yeah. Nice. Were you, was you on? Yes. You were? Oh, I gotta talk to you after. Oh, yeah. There's a story. I tell if the recorder wasn't going, but it's going, so I'm So, okay, just raise your right hand and repeat after me. And when I say state your name, not state your name. Say, I state your name.
I, Alexander Jordan,
Having been appointed to the office of patrol officer
having been appointed to the office of patrol officer
in the United City of Yorkville
in the United States of Yorkville,
and the county of Kendall aforesaid,
in the county of Kendall aforesaid,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of patrol officer
of the office of patrol officer
of the United City of Yorkville Police Department
of the United City of Yorkville Police Department
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. No, the one over the motel. Yeah, the one you. Okay, I gotta tell the story. It's a funny story. I'm probably in trouble, but I'm gonna tell you. So, my wife, if those of you who don't know, my wife is a coroner, and unfortunately, they had a call the other day, and so she goes on the call, and it was in one of the local motels that's been around for like 20 years, and apparently it was in the upper floor, and they're kidding around back and forth that, God, it'd be nice if the building codes required an elevator in here, but apparently all the handicap accessible spots are on the first floor, so, they're the code, but, so, I don't know whoever else was on the call, but he's on the call, and one of the other guys on the call, and my wife says, God, that mayor's a real jerk, and he doesn't realize I'm going to the corner, and so she's bad-mouthing me, and then finally they fessed up that, so you didn't get in trouble, did you? No. Okay, good. Jeez, I thought
I just stay quiet.
you learned real quick, right? So, congratulations. Now, do we do like more photos or not?
Absolutely.
Okay, if you want to do more photos.
Come on here, guys.
Hey, you don't have to if you want to. And the family gets up there too.
Yeah.
Do you want to get in here too, family?
And I'll email you right now.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, Aaron,
I'll
okay.
email you all these pictures.
Yeah.
So,
You do email, right? I don't. Fantastic.
Thank
Congrats
you.
again. That's awesome. Yep. Thank you. You'll love it. Can I hear from you? Okay, I'll tell you one other thing. I shouldn't tell you this either. But, so Jim talks about a couple hours ago, we had a staff meeting 4 o'clock. And I said, well, where's he from? And he said he's from Pontiac. I said, well, how long was he there? He said, about a month. I said, so what, Pontiac? Did he just got out of jail? No, he just worked there.
So we actually stole Jordan from Pontiac PD, which was fantastic. It's a great catch on our side. We got a bunch of guys in the back. It's good having you guys there. Thank you for coming out. So Alex was, he came to us from Ottawa, Illinois. That's where he was born and raised. He graduated from Ottawa High School, attended Illinois Valley Community College, where he attained his associate's degree in criminal justice, went to Western Illinois and attained his bachelor's degree in law enforcement justice administration. He did 2 internships, which is kind of unusual, but it's pretty cool. The South County Sheriff's Office and the Ottawa Police Department. The chief over there, Brent, great guy, worked with him before. He's a graduate of Macon County Law Enforcement Academy. So when Pontiac hired him, he was on our list. Ray did some smooth talking, got him in, and we did everything we could to try to lure him here. It's awesome getting somebody who's already law enforcement trained as far as the academy goes. So it's fantastic for us. So Alex is joined here by his mom, Gina, his grandpa, Dave, his grandma, Kathy, and his girlfriend, Michelle. So welcome aboard. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Excellent. Okay, do we have any public hearings today? They're not half the audience real quick. Any citizen comments on the agenda? None? Okay. There's no consent agenda. We do have minutes for approval in the packet from December 10th, 2019. Is there a recommendation for approval? Is there a second? Second by Transier. Are there any comments, corrections? None. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Phone calls, that was the bet. I was for sure you're going to find something in 2 minutes. But they said you can't tell them, so I told you to tell them. It was not bad. Okay. Now we're to the bills list. We have bills for the amount of $1,424,176.18 for vendors, $2,609,088.25 for wire payments, $597,014.67 for payroll, 2 payrolls, for a total of $4,630,279.10. Is there a motion to approve? Second, Shusky and Kohler. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Tarulis.
Aye.
Transier.
Aye.
Moser.
Aye.
Peters. Peterson.
Aye.
Koch.
Aye.
Oshinski. Motion carries.
Very nice. So now, we will go to the park naming request. That was one of the changes, or the change we made in the agenda. So in our packet, we have, where's that here? Towards the end. So the one we moved to the front. The park in Windette Ridge, what street is that on?
Fairfax Way.
Fairfax Way? Yes. That's the one with,
South entrance.
yeah, and what's the little, is it a?
It's a pirate theme.
The pirate thing, that's the pirate thing now. I can remember that was darn well. So we're looking for a motion to approve the park board's recommendation of the name Coleman Park for the name of the Windette Ridge subdivision park located at 2500 Fairfax Way. So,
Second.
Okay, so one thing we have to remember is this. This is the wrong one. Doc Coleman was a mayor when?
Off the top of my head, 70s. Yeah. So it's like late 70s.
67 to 75. Was it?
67 to 75.
Really, 8 years. God, a long time ago. One of those years I wasn't even alive. So, and of course, he was in the community. How old was he? How old was he when he passed?
94.
94. That's like 3 times my age. So he did a lot for the community. He was here a long time. He was a mayor of the town. It was probably about 1,500 people back then. So it's nice to remember, you know, people who contributed to the city and watched it grow substantially. So I appreciate everyone's support. Any other comments? We'll do roll call, please.
Transier,
Aye.
Flochurch,
Aye.
Frieders,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Koch,
Aye.
Milczewski, Funkhauser,
Aye.
Chirulis,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you very much. Tim, you'll get a plaque up there?
We'll get a sign made,
Yeah.
like you see at the other parks, and we'll have it installed probably sometime this summer.
Nice, see how much weather is better.
Yes, sir.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks for coming. Good to see you.
Thank you.
You can stick around for the rest of the meeting, it's pretty dull. You're more than welcome to. Okay, so we took care of that, and now we are to, oh, before we get to the metro station options, I have a couple other things I'd like to talk about. So first of all, I don't know if any of you read the police reports that we get sent a couple times a day, just the activity reports. I don't read all of them, but I just want to clarify. There was one that came out a couple days ago, and it reported that there was a horse on the bridge on Route 34. And I wasn't quite clear what that meant, because the report said, well, we asked the, well, I didn't say ask the horse, they asked to leave, and they complied. And I thought, is this really a joke, or what was it? So I emailed back, and it was really supposed to be horseplay, is what it was. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, somebody was horse-playing on the bridge. So I thought, well, that would be kind of interesting, a horse on the bridge. And they spoke to the horse, and the horse complied. Like, that's Mr. Ed? Is that what that horse was called, Mr. Ed? You know that when you were a kid. So anyway, that was one thing. It had nothing to do with anything, but I just thought it was kind of cute. And it required clarification. Next thing I would like to, no, not that, but thank you. Got a couple more. Next thing is we had Yorkville School District at the middle school had, I call it the Taste of the World. It was, there was some other official name for it.
Yeah, this weekend, this Saturday, it's called Taste of Yorkville Cultural Matters event of the school district in the city.
And so it was great. It was a great event. It was again, it was at the middle school Saturday from 2 to 5, and the city and Tim's staff collaborated with the school district. And I think there were about 20 or 25 different countries represented, and most of them had food at the tables, and there was some great food. And then they had the like mariachi band, they had the string orchestra playing, they had the, I think the high school step dance team was there. It was a wonderful event, and I think Tim said there was probably at least 500 people, 400 people at least.
And we handed out 350 passports because people went around to the different countries.
And you ran out, right?
We ran out of those, and then there were a lot of people that didn't even get passports. So I would say there was at least 500 people there.
Yeah, so it was a wonderful event, and everyone braved it, 12 inches of snow or whatever the heck we had, or the little bit of flurries we had. So anyway, it was a great event, and this kind of just carries on, parlays into the next item. So Tim is so excited about this event going so well, and Tim is excited, and so is the mayor. So excited, we are going to do a margaritas and mayo. You know how we do the wine taste, what do you call it, wine down Wednesdays?
Yes, sir.
So we do those in the summer. The last, it's the last Thursday before Memorial Day.
It's the Thursday before Memorial Day.
Yeah, so on the 21st of May, we're gonna do a margaritas and mayo. Now the details we don't have yet, but we're obviously gonna have margaritas there. And we're looking at making mariachi bands and maybe some ice cream vendors and stuff like that. So mark that on your calendars. And if there's no snow days, we're told that is the last day of school. There might be a lot of teachers here. So anyway, mark that on your calendars. We have a lot of other activities, but now we can get on to the official mayor's report. Okay, so the first item we have is the metro station. So I'm looking for a motion to authorize staff to notify Metro that the city's primary preference for a metro station location is option D, at the southeast corner of the BNSF rail line and Route 47, with a secondary station location preference of option B located near Eldamain Road and the BNSF rail line, and to eliminate locations option A and C and from further consideration, and to approve the traditional concept design scheme for the potential future commuter station. So moved. Peterson, second by Tarulis. Mr. Colgate, oh, did you have a question or comment? Okay, excellent. Are there questions or comments? This is really what we discussed at the last meeting. Nothing's really changed. Everyone seemed to be in favor. Okay, let's do a roll call just so everyone's hearing.
Tarulis.
Aye.
Transier.
Aye.
Clocher.
Aye.
Frieders.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Koch.
Aye.
Milczewski. Aye. Funkhauser.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Excellent. Hey, we're cruising along. Now, the next one is for the library. We have the mini golf fundraiser coming up. And that is January 26th from 11 to 4. And I have a proclamation that I am going to read. Whereas libraries provide access to information and also serve as community centers, and whereas the Friends of the Yorkville Public Library is a support group for the library, and whereas the Friends of the Yorkville Public Library strive to focus attention on library services and needs, and also help to strengthen and expand library services, and whereas the Friends of the Yorkville Public Library participates in fundraising for library projects, programs, and the purchase of special equipment, and whereas the Friends of the Yorkville Public Library will be holding a mini golf fundraiser on Sunday, January 26, 2020, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. in the Yorkville Public Library. Now therefore I, John Purcell, Mayor of the United City of Yorkville, do proclaim Sunday, January 26, 2020 as the Yorkville Library Mini Golf Fundraiser Day in the United City of Yorkville, and encourage all residents to support the Yorkville Public Library by participating in this fundraiser day. So, it's now declared. Now, is there anyone who wants to say anything about the fundraiser? Shelley, do you want to say anything? I didn't think you did.
Tiffany is our project manager for this.
Wait, Heidi, no, if you don't want to, you don't have to. I just, okay.
Just more attendance or past the board. We've got great raffles. We have hotel stays, White Sox tickets, Chicago Cubs autograph picture, numerous baskets. Joliet Jackhammers has donated a suite for 20,
Really?
which is a $500 value. So come golf. Even if you don't have kids, just come golf. It's okay. We'll take you.
And the nice thing about it, it's the day, the Sunday where there's no football.
And it's 23 degrees on that day, supposedly, so why not come inside and stay warm? Just saying.
Yeah, that's good. And the White Sox tickets values are skyrocketing. They've acquired so many good players this offseason. Just so you know. And if you want this, does anyone want this proclamation?
Yeah, if actually, if,
I'll give it to Erin. That way, I can see you're busy if you don't want to crinkle, but Erin can be in charge. She's in charge of everything.
you want a picture with them? Yeah. Can we do a quick picture with you?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's terrible.
You don't have to.
No, God, no.
Oh, you're a busy man.
Oh, that's just, no, you can't. What do you want to hold the proclamation? Oh, okay.
Give it to Bobby. She's our president of the Friends.
Come on up, all of you, whoever wants to. Any all want to give it? Danny, you want to give it? You're on the park board.
I am.
Or the library, sorry.
I know that they spent a lot of time into this.
Do you want to get in?
There's a lot of discussion.
Yeah, I know, it's good. How
There's a lot of.
are you? All right, come on. That's fine. I don't need it. I struggle now. It's good balancing, though, right?
Right, he's my next one.
Oh,
What's over here? There. Cheese. Cheese.
okay, so,
Cake.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you. You guys can have a whole room to yourself here.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sure.
We'll see you there.
Yes. No.
Just bring your checkbook. That's what's important.
Yeah, bring your checkbook. Oh, and this year actually, we have
my checkbook.
You can bring your debit cards too, or taking credit cards.
Oh, man, that's really scary.
So, yeah.
You've been working on this a long time. I know we've talked before.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's outstanding.
Thanks.
No, thank you for doing it. Thanks, girls. See you later.
They
Bye-bye.
like your jokes, they were clapping. Good future residents.
Hey, I like it. How old are you? About 1.5?
3 and 2.
Oh, 3 and 2. Okay, yeah, 15 years. Keep it in mind.
Thanks, guys.
Vote.
Thanks, Tim.
Make sure you're registered. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, now we're on to, oh wow. We're cruising right along. Oh, this one's tough though. The next one. Resolution authorizing the disposal of personal property owned by the city, a city-owned police vehicle. Is there a motion approved? Second. Second by Funkhauser. I think I heard first. Any discussion? This requires a roll call, please.
Clocher.
Aye.
Peters.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Koch.
Aye.
Milszewski. Aye. Funkhauser.
Aye.
Chirulis.
Aye.
Transier.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next thing, mayor's report continued. We have more property owned by the city-owned public works vehicle. Is there a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the disposal of the city-owned public works vehicle? So moved. Milszewski and was it Fletcher? So, Peterson? Somewhere over one of these. Okay, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Peters.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Koch.
Aye.
Milszewski. Aye. Funkhauser.
Aye.
Chirulis.
Aye.
Transier.
Aye.
Clocher.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Sweet. Second. Yeah. Finishes off my report. Public Works is your report. No Public Works report?
Public Works
Okay. Did you have anything you want to offer? Okay, that's fine.
They're doing an excellent job on the mile district. I appreciate all the reports that we get. Hopefully don't have to spend too much on salt.
That's good, and I know there are some local businesses, like, people like to plow, not others, that do appreciate a little bit of snow. So we have to keep those folks in mind as well. Okay, EDC, I see we have some items. You want, well, you might have others, right? You might have others? No, okay, this one.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution approving the downtown public art program and authorize the mayor to execute.
Is that second by Coke? Okay, who wants to give a brief synopsis of this? Christie? I didn't know if Jackie did, but,
No, unfortunately, it was there.
okay, well then definitely Christie.
This is a plan and a policy for public art in downtown. It does not require any funding from the city. It's just a guide to where we would like to see future public artworks, or if you want to do private art, kind of a guide to how we would envision the location of private art installations in the downtown.
Questions, comments? Mr. Peterson?
So we could invest in this, or, you know, if we get the right situation, they can actually invest in it, and we wouldn't have to invest in anything. So it's just a way, it's kind of a, actually it's kind of a roadmap to what we do in the future, kind of dress up the downtown and have some local talent come together. And we were talking in the meeting, it could be a nice mentorship program for some of the older artists in the area to help some of the schools maybe in their art programs. So there's a lot of positive directions that this could go. So we're kind of excited about it.
That's good. Mr. Freitas, that's your hand.
He summarized it perfectly.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Other comments? Mr. Funkhauser?
I know there's no upfront cost to this, obviously there's some staff time managing some of this. If we had an installation going, who's responsible for maintenance of it?
So in the agreement, we would have a maintenance agreement with the artist, so either the city, if it's on public property, it would be us, of course, would be our public works department. But if it's on private property, we would engage the owner, and the city could kind of come up with a maintenance schedule for that. It'll be done on an individual basis, and any of those agreements will come before city council.
Okay, so we would know as a council if we're being obligated for any type of maintenance or anything, any costs associated. Okay.
Good question. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Peterson.
Aye.
Koch.
Aye.
Milszewski. Aye. Funkhauser.
Aye.
Discussion, questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Coke?
Aye.
Bilshuski?
Aye.
Funkhauser?
Aye.
Truas?
Aye.
Transier?
Aye.
Clocher?
Aye.
Readers?
Aye.
Peterson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. If I could add one item on that, and maybe they talk about this at the committee meeting, but I asked staff, do we need to look at tweaking this ordinance a little bit? So some of the stuff we can just throw away, it's kind of worthless, and they're to look at tweaking the ordinance a little bit. Just some of the stuff, I think it's $500 now at when it was purchased. So if we purchase something $500, even if it's 10 years later, we can't just jump it. We got to go through this process, and there's stuff where sometimes staff just should be able to say, chuck it in. So anyway, not something tonight, but they'll become reports.
Just so you know, the federal government's the same way. They, something in the 90s and up to $10,000 or $15,000 for it's worth.
It's interesting. You throw away atoms and stuff like that.
That would work.
Atoms. Okay, thank you. Seaver, you have another one.
Make a motion to approve an ordinance amending the code of ordinances as it relates to temporary liquor permit fees and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
Second.
Second by Milshewski. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Frieders.
Just wanted to double down on the idea that nonprofits and for-profit businesses are cool. If you don't pay taxes, you're going to pay the $35.
Any other comments?
It's $35. Why do we need to waive it?
What's that?
Why even give the option to waive it? I mean, if someone's going to an event, they're going to need to put up other large amounts of money, $35 is a drop in the bucket. And we have an administrative, straight at time, Lisa's got to, do work on it. So why even wait? It's not like it's $500.
I don't disagree. It was something I asked staff to look at. I think we've had, 6 of these last year. And to your point, it's $35. But some of these are not-for-profits that give a lot to the community. I know the Kiwanis, Knights of Columbus, they help the staff, the park staff, in a lot of these events where it would cost the staff hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars an hour. And I thought if we had an opportunity to give back $35, you're absolutely right. No one asked me for it. I just thought it'd be something nice to offer. So considering what they give in the community, I thought it was just a small gesture.
For my park board time, I think what we would do there with some kind of fees, Tim can tell me if I'm correct, we would try to find sponsors to pay those fees. Did we have how we used to work when it was in the park board?
Well, I mean, a lot of the fees, if we're collaborating with them, usually they're waived because it's a city event. So, there's two separate entities, and we really haven't had a situation where someone's come in and rented a park and did a festival that was truly not having us involved with it. I know the Knights of Columbus or St. Pat's, they've done stuff actually on their own property. So we've had nothing to do with that. But like the Kiwanis, the 6 he was talking about, I think 4 of them we were somewhat involved with. Then we didn't waive the fees, but like the Oktoberfest, they had to get their own liquor license and things like that.
Other questions? Mr. Funkhauser.
What's the thought of having it as selected? Why not waive it for all nonprofits?
There was no thought of being selected other than if they come across, we can look at it. And I said, if the KKK came in town and they wanted to do some event, you know what? I'm not going to waive it for them. And people say, why? Because they don't know about the community. These other groups help the community. I don't have a problem giving back to somebody else's community. Because I said, these groups spend thousands of hours giving back to the community. And a lot of times at events that the city puts on. And if you don't want to give them $35 off on a, occasional 6 times a year, that's fine. I just thought it'd be a nice gesture. Other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Bilshuski? Aye. Funkhauser?
Aye.
Truas?
Aye.
Transier?
Aye.
Clocher?
Aye.
Readers?
Aye.
Peterson?
Aye.
Coke?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you all for your support. Okay, Seaver, do you have anything else?
Yeah, good.
That was awesome. we have less discussion on the metro. Okay, admin committee. Well, now, this is gonna be the real fun stuff. I think Bart has something. This is yours, right, Chris? Oh, this is really fun, isn't it?
Maybe we want to do the rain tree ordinance first, knock that out one.
Yeah, you know, are you okay with that, Mr.
Yeah, we'll do that.
I second that. It's gonna take a second, so.
Make a motion to approve an ordinance abating special service area taxes for special service area number 2004-107, Rain Tree Village 2 project.
Second by Mr. Frieders. Any discussion? This is just required by ordinance, and actually, what will happen is, Ron will correct, the fees will go up slightly for a couple years, but in several years, it'll actually drop quite a bit.
Yeah, it'll increase by, we implementing the max for the next 5 years, it'll be 1.5% increase, and then we're projecting 24 and 25 for it to drop by about 8%.
Nice. But again, it's required. So, any other discussion? This does require roll call, please.
Trulis. Transier.
Aye.
Clocher.
Aye.
Frieders.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Milczewski. Funkhauser.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Before we start the motion on the table, do you want to approve or talk, or do you want to get the motion on the table first? Procedurally.
I think it'd be more appropriate to get the motion on the table first.
Okay. Make a motion to approve a resolution providing for the selection of qualified firms to provide architectural services, facilities, master plan request for qualifications, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
Second?
Second.
By Milczewski. Okay.
No, this resolution sets up the 3 architects or facility planners or whatever, gives us a list, and Bart can explain it too. This does not determine the work product to be requested. So voting yes on this just gives us a list prospectively to select an architect. So.
Yeah, and even procedurally, I was gonna make the point that you could vote, we could discuss the resolution and vote on it before I even give this presentation,
Correct.
which is only dealing with the back half.
That's actually.
What are we actually going to do?
Right.
That's a good point.
Clean.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing too is this doesn't preclude us from bringing other firms forward in the future. You know, if we see an opportunity where we might need other firms, we could go through this process and bring other firms forward in the future. So, this just establishes.
What's the point? So,
Go ahead.
twofold, okay. So the resolution in the packet lays out the priority ranking of 3 firms that if we choose to move forward with the master facility plan as we had scoped out last year, we could do it on a moment's notice. So you could say, a month from now, go, and then we can start negotiating with the first firm, try to come to terms with them on scope and price, and if we can't, we'll go to the second firm, and third firm. So that's required under the state's qualification-based selection process for architecture firms. So it gives us an ability to cut the red tape when we want to authorize the study in the future, if we want to. The secondary effect of that, though, is that we've then qualified those firms to be able to work with us in the future. And whether that's a smaller study, less than $25,000 that's authorized at the staff level, or above $25,000 that requires to be approved by city council, you can do that without going through the entire QBS process again. So we're cutting the red tape on a potential future study as well.
And this process started a year ago in November under the previous administration. Staff went through the process and was ready to make a recommendation. Then I took office, and so we held off. And so this is just a continuation of staff's recommendation to include these 3 firms on the list. And again, we might add firms in the future. I'm going to come back and say, you know what, I'd like to add a couple more firms. It just allows us more flexibility in the future, so we don't have to go through that process. If you say no, then when we want to do something, we'll have to go through that process. There are certain thresholds that we have to meet, but this just really makes it potentially smoother when we want to negotiate with a firm. Doesn't guarantee we'll get something agreed to with these 3 or any of these 3, but so this is a staff recommendation, and I'm fully supporting the staff on this. Other questions or comments? So to Bart's point, do you want to vote on this discuss some potential ideas of what direction we want to go.
So the idea of creating a list that we can kind of choose from and then be able to quick-fire and move on something, well, that kind of sounds advantageous to me. Part of me kind of likes the red tape. We're talking about spending between $75,000 and $150,000 on something.
So let me stop you just for a second.
So,
When we spend over, what's it, 25,000?
yes,
We have to come to city council.
correct.
So this does not give us a carte blanche, say, let's go spend 75 grand more.
Correct. But his
Okay.
comment about mini studies, or smaller studies, like, when we first started talking about this, it was even questions that I had about, all right, what buildings does Yorkville own? Because part of me was looking at we had insurance stuff from Mike Alicia, and we were still paying insurance on the replacement cost of the jail, and it was like way more than what we sold the jail for, right? So it was just, it was an eye-opener, because there's a whole bunch of properties that are listed on here, and then at meetings, we went through the status and the quality of every building, replacement costs, future needs, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. But then we also had the evaluation of what are we going to need in the future? Well, we're not going to make that determination right now. That's for the next step. Well, that first step was like the big chunk. I mean, we took a while to get to that decision. I remember going back and forth with the bunk about, all right, well, how are they going to evaluate all these things? And I remember each building being like a 25-minute conversation here, because we need that type of in-depth evaluation. What is it? What are we going to do with it? Should we just dump it and move on? Well, the two facilities we have coming before us relatively soon, police decisions, public works. Two things that if we make a decision on one and they're not in line with the other types of facilities that we need, we're jumping the gun to potentially save a few bucks. But the last thing I want to do is to be sitting in front of kitchen cabinets in a city hall. If this isn't considered a priority, I just feel like that would be disjointed to approve a list of vendors that if we may or may not. What's that?
They're not vendors.
We're paying them money for a service. In my opinion, my lay definition, that's basically a vendor. They give me something, I give them cash.
But what, I don't disagree with your point on the facilities, but the law, and that's why I'm addressing with your permission, sir, is that you can't even begin to negotiate with any vendor unless you have gone through the RFQ process. So what you are being provided with tonight is a list of vendors. So if and when you decide to do the activities that you are to do, you would have a list of vendors and not decide your activity, then go out for an RFQ, which takes 3 to 6 months. So we want to give you a list of qualified architectural firms as required by the law. You can't hire an architectural firm without going through an RFQ process and developing a list. So that's what we're trying to give you, not making the decisions or addressing your concerns.
Well, if that's what we were going with, that's one thing, but you made the comment a couple times. We could add other firms at a later time. So if we're considering adding firms at a later time, why are we having this list voted on now when we're going to be going through the RFQ process?
Why did you say that?
We might add other firms. I mean, we may find that there are firms that specialize in one area or another.
Then we have to go through the whole RFQ, but at least you have a list to reject.
We have a starting list. We have no list now. It's a cabinet.
This would be like having a retainer, having several companies that want a retainer, right?
Not even that much. It's just that we follow the statutory mandate that when you have an architect, when you hire an architect or an engineer, unless you have a prior relationship with an architect or an engineer, you have to go out for an RFQ to the world, ask for qualifications, review them, interview them, all of which the staff has done, only to be able to facilitate any decisions you make with regard to the need for architectural or engineering.
Yeah, so just to add on to the point of, like, if we were to say, well, we want to add more firms later onto this roster, and so we're not going to approve this now. If for some reason one of these 3 firms chooses not to bid on whatever study we do in the near future, then they're not on the list to be pre-qualified for us. So it just gives us less flexibility. So again, the resolution is it's a housekeeping matter. It's not even required under law. We talked about it a year ago when we were going to proceed with the master plan. The city council does not have to vote on the ranking, 1, 2, 3, or who's on the list. We just said it's unclear to us which way we're going here and what the study is going to look like. we have the chance at least to close out this paperwork and basically roster 3 firms to be able to work with us in the future. Let's do that, have the discussion over what the studies will look like later.
The operative word is out roster, not retain. Roster.
Sure.
Simple.
Yeah.
I saw Jack and then Chris.
So you're saying we can only, so we're gonna go on hopefully soon and get the study going. Only these 30 we're expecting bids from.
No. These, this list of 3 firms, we would be able to hire for any work in the future for any dollar amount, whether it's staff approved or city council approval, without having to go through the entire QBS process, which is a public notice, an internal analysis, a complicated back and forth where you're not supposed to talk about money. You know, it's very cumbersome. So it adds like 60 or 90 days to the process. So by approving the resolution, we're not saying, you know, we're only going to go to these 3 firms for the study in the future. We're just saying we're qualifying these 3 firms to be able to work with us without going through the QBS in the future. If you all said we are going to do this exact thing that we scoped out and it's a master plan, then yeah, theoretically we should go to that first firm and say, you know, hey, can we come to an agreement on price and scope and go from there? But it would be up to you to budget for it and then authorize us to proceed forward.
So to proceed on the master facility plan, we would have to go back out for bids?
No. Nope.
I guess I'm just confused.
Nope. You would not. You could say today, all 9 of us that can vote, direct you to proceed with the master plan. We want you to go negotiate with that first firm and bring us a contract, you know, at the next meeting. So, and we would proceed accordingly.
So if we're just, say we're to say, okay, Dewberry's ready to let's go and negotiate with them. How do we not know then that the other 2 might be more economical?
Because the statute says you can't do it that way.
The state.
That's the frustrating part. It's not the logic of what you were saying. We get that. It's the law that is mandating you can't go out and put an architectural need, which this facility, you can't put it out to bid. You have to first develop a roster, your word, of qualified, and then you have to start at the top. You can't talk money to them, you just have to look at their qualifications.
That had a lobby at one time.
Obviously.
Unless,
They lobbied the state.
unless you previously worked with that firm before.
Correct.
Or
So-
you qualified them in some form or fashion.
Right.
And then you can cut that part of the procurement process out.
We have no issues with EEI, we have no issues with the other engineering firms we work with locally, so then we can just go out to bid, because we have relationships, we can just go to them. But when it comes to architectural, we are stuck with the law.
So it is the same statute as the engineering, so it's
But
all.
just we haven't worked for
Right.
so many years.
Right.
With an architect.
Right,
So
we have
to
a lot of relationships.
Alderman's question, I can assure you that fees would definitely be part of the discussion. So that is not going to be glossed over in any discussions we have.
Did you say that again? I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. I can assure all the aldermen that if and when we come to discuss any project with any firm, fees will be part of the discussion. Will it be the only factor? No, but absolutely it'll be part of the discussion. There's no way I'm going to support doing anything blind without knowing the fees are relative to what the market is for that particular project. It wouldn't be prudent on my part to recommend anything without at least understanding that. I saw Mr. Fonda.
So when we did our comprehensive plan, we approached that slightly different. We approached that in the manner that we solicited the qualifications and the council authorized the mayor to negotiate. And then they brought forward the contract.
Sure.
Bypass the qualifications process. Well, it didn't bypass it, but it put it at a staff level. Staff selected, staff went through, rated, scored. And, right, but in a similar scope. On this one, as Bart said, we do not have to do the qualifications approved by council. Because if I recall, what we had actually authorized was the approval of the qualifications and authorized the mayor to negotiate a contract. That's what the resolution or the ordinance was that we approved, if I recall. was to negotiate. That was under the prior mayor. That was close to being done, but then that went into the new mayor's term, and it's adding longer. If we were to do this, this could have been done 6 months ago if we were just talking about a list. We could have had a final interview, because that was the last thing to be done, was final interviews, and then create a list.
Could have been, you're right.
So on the list, we've sat for months. Now, the second part is, we are now looking for the direction of that second part, which is going to be, how do we move forward with this? I don't have an issue creating a qualified list. Now, what I do have an issue with is the $25,000 staff level approval. If we don't explicitly budget it, is it approved? Is it something the staff can authorize and approve?
If it's budgeted, yes.
If it's not budgeted, if it's not a line item
We have to first come to you and amend the budget unless it is within some category or some department, or is it under some general umbrella of a department.
So as happened in a prior mayor's administration, the council said no to a certain study. It was a railroad study. Well, not that long after that, a smaller study came through and was going to be approved under this condition, under the $25,000 staff level approval. Council got wind and we said no. It was already voted down. How do we have the assurity that that's not something that would happen?
So I can say this. I'm not asking you to approve a specific study tonight. I'm asking you to approve a list. And I may say, I want to do a small study on this or that. I'm not going to tell you I'm not going to do it. But I can tell you, if we're going to do a big study, I'm going to apprise the city council of it. And if it's above that dollar threshold, you're going to vote on it. But I'm not going to tell you, Mr. Funkhauser, that every time we want to talk to a consultant for any dollar amount, it's going to come to city council for a vote. I'm just not going to tell you. If I want to engage somebody for $2,000, I'm not coming to the city council. It's in the budget, and it's in the budget right now.
But if it's not explicitly listed in the budget, how is it authorized by budget?
We don't have a budget appropriation line by line for every single widget that the city buys or every single project that we have. You have categories, so but that, with regard to this or any other item, the spending cap by state statute is $25,000, and we abide by that.
I get that.
Do you feel there's a $25,000 expenditure since I've been mayor that was outlined?
No.
Then what gives you concern? But I can't speak for the previous administration. I've been mayor since May 14th.
And I understand.
8 months. Do you have a concern with the spending I've done?
I do not. If I did, I would raise it during the bill list and during
I
the
figured you would, so
administration.
I understand your concern. You and I have a slightly different angle on this. The direction you want to go is different than the direction I want to go. But I promise you, the direction you want to go is a lot more than the direction I want to go dollar-wise.
I mean,
what's that?
I mean, and I'm just, it's kind of more of a rhetorical, so I don't want to get into that right now. But we can get into that later.
That's why we budgeted $150 grand. Jen, yes, I hear you.
I guess maybe I'll understand, correct me if I'm wrong. The council gave direction of what a year ago, of how we wanted to proceed on this. And it's not getting done, and I guess that's maybe.
That's kind of where
That's
I'm
kind
at.
of the concern, and I'm not commenting on your.
That's fine.
But it's kind of, then why does the council say anything if no one's gonna listen? You know, we went over a year ago, we said, the last mayor sat on it. If we give direction to something, we want it, evidently if all 8 of us want something done, we want to see it moving in that way. You know, we said we wanted to have this study, and it just sitting, this is a year's, it's not mayor's spending our time. So I think that's where I'm feeling you're coming from, is the frustration, and then you have your own ideas and suggestions. So that's why I think Alderman Funkhauser's bring up the concern as with the train study. It wasn't the direction of the council.
So I can say a couple things to that. I wasn't the previous mayor. I don't know what the council voted on, nor quite frankly do I care what the council voted on. We have a new administration, a new mayor, and a new council. We start brand new. The money was budgeted. We're moving forward along those lines. This would have been part of that process. To Mr. Funkhauser's concern, it could have been done 6 months ago. Well, it wasn't. I mean, if you want to vote no, I don't care, we'll hold it 6 more months. I really don't care. This is just really staff recommendation. Staff would brought these 3 firms forward back in May, had there been no new mayor. So this is really what Mr. Funkhauser wanted back in May. So it's 8 months ago. If you want to hold it off, I don't really care.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, that's not what I want. This list is not what I want, because what I want
But this is part of that process.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, you just recognize me, correct? Thank you, sir. The request that was made, and it actually wasn't a request, it was an ordinance that was approved by the council, was to bring forward the proposal. That's what was approved. The council authorized that. It was 8 members of the council. Just because we have a new mayor does not mean that the will of the council should be subjugated. That is not the intent. Just because someone new comes in an elected position doesn't mean you get to forego everything that was done prior. I mean, that's not the way it works. Things were set in motion 2 years prior to that by the process of going through the committees, going through the council, going through the request for proposals or qualifications. To say that when a new elected person comes in and they get to throw all that away and start over new, that's not the case. The will of the council was such. Now, if the council wants to change that, we can absolutely change that here. The council's will was given, so the expectation was that that proposal was to be brought forward.
So, back to Bart's original question. Do you want to vote on the list first and then have a discussion? Because to your point, your frustration, you and I can disagree on this process, or let me rephrase, you and I can disagree on what we want to study. But in the end, if we want to spend more than $25,000, this needs to get done. Whether you agree with what I want to do and whether I agree with what you want to do, this needs to get done. So if you want to vote no on this, I don't really care. We'll kick it off another 6 months. And I promise you, your study would never get done if we don't go through this process.
Yeah.
We can't do it.
Can I ask a legal clarification on that?
Yes, sir.
So, as the mayor saying, this has to get done for the approval of the qualifications.
For spending more than $25,000, absolutely, yes. We have to have a roster in order to,
But as Bart said, it doesn't have to come to council for approval of that list.
true, and this is transparency.
This is out of courtesy.
This is, right, transparency as to if you gave a direction to do a specific study project.
But if we chose, staff could have selected this roster as it is presented tonight, and that could be the roster without council input.
Yes,
So, Mr. Mayor, your comment would be erroneous in that aspect, that we do not have to, at council, approve that list, correct? Kathy?
correct.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Well, then, you know what? No, I asked that this motion be removed from the table. Is there, who made the motion?
My motion.
Why don't you ask, would you remove this from the table? If you're saying you want to follow the law and the law doesn't require you to vote on it, I ask you that they remove from the table, and I'll have the staff make the recommendation, and it'll be done.
We have to choose 3, it's not the city council that does it. We do have to make a roster of 3.
Correct, but it does not require a city council. We were looking to do that in the, on the off chance these polls.
If you do not want city council to have input, we'll make the decision.
And I'm not saying to do that, I don't want to take that off, because we do that, we remove the discussion.
Okay, well then, I'm really trying to, I think you have an issue on what study you want to do versus what study I want to do. This really is a separate issue. It just happens to be brought up at the same time. That's probably my mistake for having staff bring it up at the same time. I should have said, let's vote on this and talk about it in 2 months. My mistake, I apologize to all of you for not thinking that through properly. But you can either vote on this, or you don't have to vote on this. And if you don't want to vote on this, I'll make the decision. I'll just say, staff, I'll sign off on it. I'm asking for city council input. And if you really have a heartache with any of these firms, bring it up. Mr. Frieders.
I think the reason why there is trepidation and not necessarily fear, but concern, curiosity as to why it's this way. So from my experience, we go out to RFP, we get proposals, we make a decision, staff helps vet the different, and I'm going to use the word vendor for lack of a better term. Staff uses the list of vendors, goes through them, sees some previous work, calls some references, gives us their recommendation, and then we make a decision. So the difference between what this is versus what I'm trying to use my memory to recall experience with is that the only reason that we aren't going out to RFP on this is because it's an intangible service like engineering or architectural.
Correct. So let's go.
Let me just get all these words out of my mouth before I forget, because I really have to go to the bathroom. Can you go out, may you go out for RFQ, get an answer back on the 3 that you have picked, and then immediately go out to RFP with those 3? Or now, if there's no RFP, now you have your scope of work, and you go to the top vendor, for lack of a better term. You go to that top architect, number 1. What's it called? Dewberry. You go to Dewberry and say, this is what we want to do. What's it going to cost? And there's never a discussion on what somebody else might charge us for that line item because it's an intangible service. That sounds stupid. So if that's the law is stupid.
I apologize for not bringing the law here to read to you, but what you just said is spot on.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So for the soundbite junkies at home, if it's tangible and you can touch it, RFP.
Right.
If you can't touch it, and a dude with a table that bends backwards, and a glasses like bread and a tie like bread, you go out to RFQ, you get a roster of people who can take your money, and you cannot negotiate with all 3 of them. You go to number 1 and say, how much is this going to cost? And you can't go to number 2 or to number 3 unless number 1 screws something up?
Yes.
That is stupid.
No,
Stupid.
No, I think it's stupid as being kind.
Stupid as being kind. Yes, that's way. Okay.
However.
So that is our issue. That's stupid. Okay, so that particular mandate is confusing because we talk about what do we want? Who can do it? Let's ask them what they want to charge us. That's how you, in my world, if I want something, I tell them what I want, and then they tell me what they're going to
It should
charge
have
me.
been an architect.
Hell no. This is, but you have to understand the purchasing process. This is, for me, this is tangible because just like the comprehensive plan, that was 40 freaking pages, like this big. That was tangible. Why was that not?
Because it was a plan.
Yeah, if I can make a suggestion, this really, the resolution really is just to cut the red tape in the procurement process in the future. We can table that part of it for 2 weeks. I think the better question is, what are we going to do? What the plan is going to look like? And I think that's what everybody really wants to discuss. So.
Can I make a motion to go to the bathroom, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, let them do it.
Thanks.
So it's not
Hey, this is stupid.
So just so I, because what you just mentioned.
Oh, Seaver, that's Seaver speech.
Hold on.
So,
Oh,
I guess I was misunderstood then on something. So at least 3, we have to go in order, 1, 2, 3 for taking, because it sounds like you can't go and ask all 3 of them to give you.
No.
If you tell us to do the master plan tomorrow, okay, so you're saying, go do this, go negotiate it. If we're following the QPS process, which is required by law by the state, we're supposed to go to the first person on the list in writing, not really verbally, and say, hey, you've been chosen, congratulations. We'd like to see this scope. Maybe we want it tweaked here and there. What's your price going to be? What's your qualifications? And then you're supposed to go back and forth on that. And then if they fall out of favor, or if they don't, if they don't have a good price, then you say, okay, no thanks, and then you go to the second one. So that's the way it's supposed to work. The discussion that we've had and the purpose of rostering it is, let's say we decide we don't want to do a plan for every building that we have in the scope. And we don't want to do a 50-year term, we want to do a 10-year term. And really we want to tweak it by asking for, public works first and police second, and the rest of them we're just going to kind of push off. So it becomes a different scope. Theoretically, we could go to any 3 of those firms, and if it's under $25,000, it would be approved by staff. If it's over $25,000, it has to come in front of city council to approve. But you don't have to go through the entire, QBS process.
Creating a roster.
Yeah.
Simple way to understand. You must create this roster.
I saw Seaver, he's been already patient.
I gotta tell you, for 6 years at the University of Illinois, I sat on probably a dozen QBS committees. Every year I was there, chaired several of them. That's the way it is. There is, that's the way you have to go. And I'm just telling you, that's what life is, it's all about.
And I agree with the concerns, absolutely, I agree with the concerns, because.
I mean, it's unfortunate, I don't necessarily agree with it, but
You
that's
see,
what it is.
we have, as the other experiences of my life that you run into this process is when someone's building a new village hall, when someone's doing, we have not had those types of projects, so that for us, as strange as it is, it's because it's a new experience of needing architecture to that extent. We did a comprehensive plan that was planners, that was a different category, not required by state statute. It is engineers, architects,
Surveyors?
and surveyors.
Attorneys.
No, attorneys, we get, you can fire us anytime like you threaten every time I'm with you.
Mr. Peterson.
So my question is, who picks the top 3 architects, and then who picks the order? I mean, I know all 3 of these. I work with a lot of architects, so I'm just curious.
So we set up a thorough quantitative analysis, so scorecard, both of the written proposals that we received, and we reviewed 7 of them, I believe, a year ago. And then we brought in 4 firms out of those 7 for an in-person interview. And then kind of gave them a thumbs up, thumbs down as far as qualifications and understanding what we were looking for, but then also scored those. And then so all those scores were added together and we came up with, a quantitative system. So there were 3 or 4 reviewers for each phase. So the scores were weighted by how well they understood, like what we were trying to do at the time, their previous experience, other factors in there too.
Okay.
And I think there's a sample scorecard somewhere in the package that shows that. So we don't have to disclose what each person thought and everything, but that was the aggregate we had everything together. So.
All right, so we need to vote on this.
We don't have one.
We'll take it out. And then are we still going to discuss, like, the 2 options?
I think the next part is, as per Bart's memo, there's 3 points. There's under recommendation 1 and 2. 2 has 3 different points, 3 ways you can go.
Okay, 27.
It's the better discussion, I guess.
So we could go right into that discussion now.
Or we could hold off for another meeting on that one, I don't care. And again, if you all don't want to vote on this, that's fine. I'm not going to sleep.
I think we understand now.
Right.
It's a
I get it.
complicated process.
But I think we needed clarification, because that's what I was confused, is like that we are stuck with them. And we have to work in order.
Well, we kind of are.
But we are, but okay, so it's the list isn't.
The list is not.
Is not an issue.
Now with the discussion, if we vote on this,
Wait, no, hang on a second. Anyone else have questions on the list? I want to just get the list out of the way. And if you don't want to vote on it, we're not going to vote on it. But any other questions on the list? Let's do a roll call on the list.
Mr. Mayor, point of order on it. Since there is no other agenda item on this, it is part of this agenda item. If we vote, that closes.
You're overruled. The Roberts rule allows us to discuss anything, we just can't take action.
Correct.
Yep.
All right, very good.
Roll call, please.
Funkhauser,
Aye.
Trulis. Transier,
Aye.
Clocher,
Aye, Mr. Trulis said so.
Readers,
Trulis?
Peterson,
Aye.
Koch,
Trulis.
Milszewski. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Mr. Funkhauser, continue, please.
Okay, so I guess the next part is the recommendation. Mark, you got some information you're going to present with us?
Yeah, and
We thought that would be a longer discussion.
just you wait. Oh, I think
Snacks.
we are going to start with square one. The presentation is very short. So I just wanted to give everybody the very quick recap of what we've asked for, what you just voted on as far as like the RFP that was attached to it, et cetera, for purposes of figuring out where we go from here. So this is just a quick summary. And again, these are my words, not what's actually in the RFP or RFQ, excuse me, but what we asked for in 2019 when we did this space needs and master plan. Basically, we said, consultant, you need to interview everybody, okay, elect staff, elected official stakeholders, and review all the relevant materials, all the old plans that we've done, everything else, that we have produced, So in general, that contained kind of 4 big ideas, although I think the list was like 15 long. You're going to look at space needs, which I'll show you a sample of our 2006 space needs analysis. So that's how different offices relate to each other and are attached. Security concerns with the building. So, the last time we looked at security in buildings, it's been 10, 15 years. Building conditions. So only this one little bullet point here is the offshoot of our EMG building conditions study. So we said, take that 1,000, 2,000 pages of each facility and make sure you're plugging that into the discussion as to whether our current buildings that are delivering municipal services are adequate. And then operational capabilities, just things that they know from being in the business or talking to other entities about what they're doing to make sure that, like, the city hall, the public works facility, and the land that's around it is adequate. So, and then we said, after you've done all of that, give us a draft report, let us beat it up for a couple months, and then prepare a final report. And in the final report, we should have the master plan, so talking about what each facility should look like, how big it should be, strategies to implement that plan, and how long it should take, both for the decision-making process to get there, and for the construction process, and then cost estimates associated with it. So, as a comparison to what we did in 2006, for the few of you that were here, we did not ask for any information on security concerns, building conditions, or operational capabilities in general. We did a downtown plan and a master facilities plan under one contract. And so we kind of just said, talk to everybody. We know that we're going to be 60,000 people in the year 2025 or whatever it was. And, take a look at what everybody thinks, put it on your own judgment as to how the offices and the services need to be delivered, give us a draft report, and we'll approve it. So it did not have this level of detail on building conditions, operational capabilities, or security concerns. So what we asked for in 2019 is much more robust than what we did in 2006. And as a reminder, in 2006, we spent $120,000 on that plan. Again, half of it was for a downtown mission plan, so it wasn't just a facilities master plan. And in 2005, because we were growing so quickly, we were having developers tell us they were going to build 3,000 houses in a year. They got to 1,000 in 2006, for reference. That we were going to be 60,000 people in 2025, and if we were going to get there, we need to make sure that we're planning for it, and that building needs to be sized accordingly. So this is the chart of all the buildings that we planned for, how much they were going to cost, and I'll send this out to everybody else so that they've got it. But we had shown in 2005 that we needed 2 public works and parks maintenance buildings of 73,000 square foot each. That it was going to be about $165 a square foot, and that in 2020 dollars it was going to be about $29 million each. So if you use that as a point of reference, that's 2025, 60,000 people, crazy growth over that 90-day period. So this is how we got there. So they went through and they list out, like, who the title of the person is, who the person is that's currently there, whether they need an open or a closed office, how big that office needs to be, and then some other notes in there. And then you get these subcategories, like this is the office space for public works, 2,700 square feet. You add those up, you got a maintenance garage, you need 20 bays to service however many trucks. And when you add all this up, you get 58,000 square foot gross, and then you add a multiplier onto it, so you get 73,000 square foot building is what you should be planning for, and it should be on 4 to 6 acres, including parking and storage. So that gives you an idea of what we looked at in 2006. So here's what the drawing looks like. So this is one 73,000 square foot building, just as point of reference. So this is 73,000 square feet. So I take that back. This is 58,000 diagrammed here, and then they don't show all the gross multiplier stuff. That's things like exhaust, HVAC rooms, those types of things.
How big was Eric's office?
15 by 15. 225 square feet. 15 by 15.
All right.
Not 73,000 square feet. So this is staff offices here. This is locker rooms. This is maintenance space, garage. I got to zoom in, but it's not formal. But this is what a 73,000 square foot building looks like. So again, here's like the diagram. So the offices are only one component of this entire building, and you've got cubicles for staff members and directors and stuff. So you can cut some of that out. We can talk about that and say like, well, our growth projections are less, so we need less staff. But in general, it's not going to take out too much square feet from what we should have ideally. So this is the garage side of it. So this is this thing right here.
sideways. This is about 40,000 square feet. It's got, drive lanes and bays, and we just said, this is how it should be set up. This is the gross square footage of what we think should occur. So just to give you an idea, our existing public works facility is 10,000 square feet. So the office space, everybody is in about 1,800 square feet. And then we've got about 8,000 under roof. So my point in showing you the existing and the 60,000 population plan is, there is a scenario where maybe you say, we don't want to do 60,000 or 70,000 square feet in a total building. We don't want to look that long term. Growth is slowed down. We're not building 3,000 homes a year, obviously. So, maybe something between what's existing, again, this is not to scale here, on the office side and on the garage side is okay. And so maybe we take a portion of the plan, or we at least rescope the RFQ for the master plan to say, no, we're going to recognize that this is an ideal scenario, but we don't have the capabilities to fund it. And so I think that there's a way, either in doing some work ahead of time with staff, or just consulting with somebody to say, take a look at this 2006 plan, and tell us what you disagree with, what you agree with, what's changed in trends, and just give us some of that information so that we can make a decision to say, we are not going to build a 70,000 square foot building for a 30,000 square foot police station. We're going to build a 20,000 square foot building, and it's going to be somewhere, over here. So Eric and I have already went through the 2005, 2006 plan of public works, and we said, okay, who's here now? Like, how many employees do we have? Who's not here? Like, if we did an aggressive 5-year hiring plan, knowing our budget issues, what's like the most amount of staff and most amount of vehicles we would need? And we ended up saying, well, in an ideal scenario, the building probably still needs to be 40,000 square feet or 45,000 square feet. Then again, that includes all of the trucks, all of the equipment under roof, which is ideal, but it's not what we have currently, and we make do with it. So maybe there's, a different scope that we can think about, how we plan this thing. So that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to show you, like, what we've done in 2006 compared to what we have, and maybe there's some sort of middle ground we can talk about, as a direction. So, questions? No?
So, thank you. Thank you, Mark. When we're talking about this idea as a plan, we've got all these different properties that we currently own, and we've got like immediate needs. So Public Works and YPD are the two things that are at the top of the list.
And I think if the YPD answer gets right, that helps us with City of Hawthorne too.
Right. So part of me, and this is why last year we were talking about this, is that we know that the two immediate needs are police and public works. But what we don't want to do, and this is why this study was important to discuss, hammer out, and then push on, was we don't want to undercut another asset that we currently have when we have blinders on those two particular projects. So I want to be able to look at what do we currently have, what are we making do with? And like when I say that, I keep on referencing these desks. So I mean, if you look at Montgomery City Hall, you're like, wow, it's a palatial estate, right? We make do. Yorkville, since I've lived here, welcome back, sir. Did you bring snacks? No, I agree. Since I've lived here, Yorkville has made do. And that's not saying that we're cheap, that's not saying that we're not taking care of the things that are important. But we do have a habit of saying, this is a priority, we should do it. But then because of money, and because it's too difficult to talk about where we're going to get the money from, we basically put it to the side and keep plodding ahead. Case in point, the carpet in this here building. I was elected in 2013, and the carpets got done just before my roads got done, which was last summer, or summer before last. So from my perspective, if something is a priority, like YPD and Public Works, we need to look at the entire city and know that if we're going to be spending money on something, and we need to consolidate something, or sell an asset, or consider tearing something down and starting from scratch, we're looking at the whole city. Because the last thing I want to do is put blinders on, like I said, and screw up by not realizing that we have other things that we can either exchange, knock down, rebuild, whatever, or what can we consolidate. And that's why I'm excited about the possibility of working with the Sheriff's Department, but I'm also excited about the fact that we could have a Public Works facility that we're not gonna have, dump trucks breaking down because the truck sat outside all year. Like, yeah, 40,000 square feet for a warehouse is a little ridiculous, but if we're saving money by allowing things to not be, submitted to the elements all the time, we're thinking smart, and that's what I want to do going forward, because honestly, if I ever run for office again and I'm sitting behind one of these things, come on, this is a kitchen cabinet. We've made do for long enough, and this is because it works, nobody's complaining about it. I've complained about it enough. But at the same time, I don't need these beautiful, ornate marble desks. But we have to have some perspective on what do we have, what do we need, and what do the experts say that we should be doing. So that's why our angst about why is this different is met with such trepidation, because this is important for the long-term vision, because we've also got a thing called water. Like that whole water plan, like the Joliet email is great news, but all of these things are constantly moving, but if we don't know what we have and what we need, we're gonna spend money for them. So that's why I'm like really, really gung-ho. Let's go.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Monko?
I think you'll know kind of where I stand on this position. We talked about this here in committee. I would like to see this study move forward, albeit probably, as we talked about in our committee last time in November, reduce scope. Let's tighten it up. Let's tighten the time frame up. Let's reduce that. Something that we can work with and manage. By all means, I don't want this to be a $200,000 study. That's not something that any of us want to get into. I mean, is it 50,000, 100,000? We don't actually know. We do know that we have a set scope right now, but if we tighten that scope, that cost is probably going to come down. But also we could look at having it amended to include part of the scope of looking at the sheriff's office in terms of what could be done. I had a very high level discussion. But to piecemeal this and go one piece at a time, that's not the way I would like to approach it. We have departments that have grown over the years. We have a department that is growing successfully. The Parks and Recreation is growing very successfully every year. I mean, their staff is growing. They are using space that they can find. Everywhere they can find space, they're using it. I don't think any of us intended for the old bank building to be recreation. It was either planned to be a city hall or a police facility. We're making use of the space. Is it the highest and best yield? Well, that's not for me to determine quite yet. I don't know. I'm going to tell you how much they're making their revenue on the programming that they have there. So is that the best use? I don't know. I haven't got into that, but that was part of the study. The study was to go a little bit beyond just looking at, okay, how much space do we need, but what buildings do we have in our inventory? How can we utilize that? That was a big part of it. We wanted to look at how could we program the spaces based on the needs we have to fund programs that we use. So my comment would be to tweak the scope a little bit and bring it up.
So to that point, if I could, I don't foresee a way that we could tweak a larger plan, however that larger plan looks, and have it include a city-county public safety building as one component of it. It would be much easier contract-wise, negotiation over scope, selection-wise, with the county to do that as like, a separate plan, a separate procurement. We're probably going to want a different vendor, is my guess, that's a little bit more specialized in public safety type issues, and maybe even one that has some sort of shared services experience to be able to select to do that. So I think everybody's excited about exploring that and saving money. So, if we're okay with tweaking the scope on a full study, in my mind, that should be carved out and we should proceed with that independently. So the county is going to want, the county has verbally expressed interest in, helping us pick a vendor and paying for the contract. So that's something that we should, proceed independently in my mind.
And on that, so if it can't be wrapped into a SOP, that'll operate as its own, once we get a handle on what we need, that can go a long ways to working with that. I just don't want to put the cart before the horse on this. I want to look at what all our facilities are. What can we do with them?
Mr. Walter?
I was born in '82, so by that, I would guess that public works needed to be done in '75. The building is falling apart. think we should get, yes, a grander scope, maybe 10, 20, whatever. I think we need to move on to public works now, the police department now. We all said we want more police, we want more of this, we want to get more cars. Where are we going to put them? So I would like to see them, they just have to get added in. You still want the grand scheme thing, I'm okay with it. But those two are number one, need to be done yesterday.
I would piggyback onto that, but the other thing I'm worried, if we do the grand scheme thing and we spend $100,000, whatever it is, do we just cut ourselves off from doing what we immediately need to do? Because we just spent this big chunk of money and then we're not really solving the current issue. That's my concern.
I think part of the concern there is that if you don't pay attention and allow an expert to kind of advise you on how you should plan the entire city, and you just move forward on those two, we're going to find areas where we could have saved money by just allowing the study to go forward. So you're only as good as your plan, and that's, you never plan to fail, but if we're going to look at this with a, attitude, which is, I'm into that, but that's why we've been talking about this particular thing for a year. Like, if this had been in the works, we would have probably been, turning the key on a public works or a police station, potentially. But this is what we're dealing with right now, is that yes, there's immediate needs, but we also have the fact that we have long-term plans that we should be abiding by to get the most for our dollar. Because the last thing I want to do is build something, and then in 5 years, we do hit 60,000, and now we're underserved. Well, we're already underserved right now, so it can't get much worse. That's the only silver lining right now. But we're not having any downturn in services by the police station. We're not having any major crises with the public works, outside of the fact that thankfully it hasn't snowed. But I mean, every year we're kind of dangling, and that's why I want to make sure that we plan accordingly so that there's no more dangling and there's no more kitchen cabinet.
That's how Mr. Peterson, that's
So I think I agree with you, sir. I think we need to address the priorities, right? But I can't say, I'm not 100% convinced on doing the full-scale plan. I mean, I've heard some other ideas out there that we could talk to department heads and see what they need. They're department heads, right? They can tell us what they think that they need, or they can kind of plan for the future. Yes, I understand that this isn't exactly what they do. They're not engineers, they're not architects, they can't say every plan. But if we can look at different things like that before we start throwing money out, because I think that we've got a lot of other big ticket items coming up that we need to address. So if we can look at maybe pinching a couple pennies here and there, that might help. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I understand what everyone's saying, and I'm kind of in that same boat, but then when you start looking at where we're at and with TIFs and with water and with future plans, it's kind of difficult. And then what if we spend all this money and then it sits for 15 years, we don't do anything with it?
Yeah.
Then what do you do?
like the last plan.
Yeah. And then it's outdated, we're going to be doing it again. So then in 30 years, you spend, what, $400,000, $300,000, and you didn't do anything to follow it. That's a challenge. So I'm just trying to look at both these sides here.
Ms. Milshewski?
I won't take that.
I'd just like to throw something out there. So I've been on the council here a long time. I've been in Yorkville for 21 years. When I moved here, some of you grew up here and stuff, this building was being built. I remember moving to Game Farm Road. Now I'd like to know, was there a study done? Because I venture to say there was no study done on this building. So in my time of being in the council, let's see. This was built possibly without any study. Let's build this building that looks like a double wide duplex. It's not what I would have thought was city hall material, but okay, what do I know? This room has been extended. The basement's been built out. It wasn't planned for. It wasn't long-term range planned for. So that's why I would like to see a plan. I'm not saying it's got to go 50, 25, 50 years, but 10 years. What are we looking at? Because I think if we don't have a guideline, that's what happens. We're going to get a public works building that, well, maybe if we would have had a little bit more outside input, that from people that have more knowledge, I'm not putting our staff down, but have this knowledge of architecture and space needs more than we do, we won't have that problem of, gee, let's make the council chamber bigger. Let's build out the basement. We still don't have that. So that's why I kind of would like to, sometimes, I know there's immediate needs, I know the police department, everybody's crowded, you know, look, I just think it would be a good guideline to have a study, so we don't make these mistakes that have been made in the past on buildings. And, you know, maybe that goes with us buying all these buildings. Maybe if we had something more concrete, we wouldn't have got the post office, and we could have saved that money and used it for something else, or the bank building. You know, maybe it would give us direction on how to move ahead to get property and do these buildings, so that council 10 years from now, maybe 20 years from now, let's say 20 years from now, we'll have to add on to make something bigger. Let's hope not. That's why I'd like to see a study. I'd like to get the input of professional people that do this for a living, with the input of our staff, and just see, move in a better way forward.
Mr. Polcher?
Ken was on park board. You were here, I was here. John, you were with county. We did this study in 2004, would look a heck of a lot different than the study we did today.
I can verify, I think we did a study, because I had it in a closet in my house when I was on park board. I can pull it out, and you would be surprised the downtown plan.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was gorgeous, never ever happened.
That's the plan.
That's what they were referring to.
Yeah.
And we just paid somebody else to come to a plan when we had a beautiful plan for them.
And I think to those of you who want to do a grander plan, that makes my point exactly. I'm like Mr. Polcher. We know we need to address public works. I'm not suggesting staff as architects and can design the building. But I think between the plan from 2005 or 6, or whatever year that was, between staff, and we can get a firm to give us some advice for not a $25,000 or $50,000 sum, and come up with some options, and then from there we can say, you know what, here's the options for the public works building, which we know needs to be addressed. We can rebuild there. We can buy a new piece of land. We have 8 acres of land over by Home Depot. We can build there. You know, we can put a,
Or you sell that.
or we can sell it. But so to me, the idea of doing, and I said this ad nauseum, to do a 20-year plan, a big grand plan, when we see right here, or 3 or 4 of you say, when I was around, we did this study, and we haven't even done a portion of the stuff in there. I don't want to go through that when I think we all would agree, at least 6 of us would agree, well, 7 if you include myself, that the #1 need for buildings is the public works building. And we need to address that. I think we're remiss as leaders if we don't make that decision. And if you want to disagree, that's fine. But I don't want to waste $150,000 or $200,000 on a study that's going to say we need to address this building, which we're not going to get to for at least 8 or 10 years, if that. Or a new mayor, new administration in 10 years says, we're doing another study, and it all goes to waste. Let's pick a building, the public works, let's address it, bring back the plan to build it, or buy a building, or whatever it is, and solve that issue. And it might not be a permanent fix, but we might have room to expand. And I agree with that. We need to set it up so we can expand. There's no future.
I don't, in my thought, I don't want a grander plan, I want a smarter plan, and I want to see us do it.
That's what we're going to do.
You know, when we just had that, they just killed me, after all these years, sit here and look at the goofy, I'm sorry, that was a goofy plan that came up from downtown this time. When there was such a good plan, what, 2006, that if anything, and you have a good point, what if we take a plan and that we have, that we spent all this money, and scale it down and be smart about it. We're not smart about things. And it's been years, it's not just us, it's been years of councils just not being smart. It's great, let's throw money here, throw money there, like you said, let's throw it in the closet and forget about it. And when you came in, I said, I called Lisa, get in the plan. Look at this downtown plan.
It interviewed an intern named Mark Olson in there.
Yes. It was innovative, and we would have moved ahead. Unfortunately, sometimes with plans, you know, things change.
Well, I think-
You know, economy changes. That was an economy change.
You're speaking similar to what I want to do a smarter plan. And
I want to,
act on it.
let's have.
And I want to act on it. And that's what I'm proposing.
I'm thinking of realistic.
What's that?
It's one thing to try and make a smarter plan or grandiose plan, not a realistic.
We can add that in, a smarter, realistic plan.
it's one thing to sit here and say, we want to make sure that we have all of these things ready to be done in the next 10 years, but then you got to figure out how you're going to do it. It's one thing to say we're going to do it, but then you got to put it in motion.
But part of that isn't that we need to know what we're going to do. We kind of have a rough idea of what we need and what we want to do. The idea is what to do first, and then what's it all going to cost, how the hell are you going to pay without negatively impacting my quality of life, because I'm sick of the Kendall County taxes. So it's like, how do we do it without spending a dime? That's the stupid question. Then the realistic one is, all right, what are we going to pay in an emergency if the entire public works facility blows over? So smart plan, yes, but it's got to be like a boom, 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 2-year, 4-year, 5-year plan that we move on.
That's,
We'll figure out what to do. Yeah.
well, I think that comes hand in hand. If you decide you're gonna do it, then we figure out how we're gonna do it, and what we're gonna get rid of or keep, and that's what we're doing.
And that talks about, how you fund it. And having the plan, I'm going to go through this list real quick. Beecher Senior Center was purposely built. City Hall was purposely built, but without a notion really as to how it would function in the long term. It was quickly done because we outgrew one of the other buildings, which is the Riverfront Rental Building. Built in the 1930s, acquired by the city, used, repurposed, and repurposed. Okay? They didn't have an activity center. Acquired, no plan. It's been purposed. It doesn't have a purpose other than what we give it now because we get into a bigger plan for it. Parks and Recreation Office, purchased, repurposed for Parks and Rec. Parks Garage, purchased, used for the recreation garage, or for the park garage. Police station, that's the same City Hall. Public Library, that one had a major plan for it because it went out of referendum. Public Works Garage, built for that, but none of these pieces, other than a couple of them, have had an overarching plan. It's, we're growing too much, we're falling apart, we need a piece. No one has ever planned through this city on how our facilities are supposed to work and operate. Do we really need to have a parks garage, a public works garage, public works office and garage? Can't we start to consolidate and actually plan for them? Don't we have enough land? Can't we acquire a consolidated piece of land? We have pieces of land scattered throughout this city that we have acquired over time. What's the purpose of all? We have underutilized land. We have massively overused land. This is what we need to figure out. I mean, is it the best place to have, some of our parks and rec on the north side, some on the south side, split apart in multiple buildings? That's what we need to figure out and get to, and that's what this study can help us with, is to make it consolidate, save money in the long term. They all have needs. No one's, denying that. Maybe not the library, maybe not, well, the senior center does have some needs over there. But the plan would help us to understand this. We've got to be able to pay for it. And this is something that, since I've been on here, we've proactively increased spending on items so that we could get things done instead of sitting on roads. We're still not even close to where we need to be on a road. But since I've been here, we have spent money because we know we have to. Otherwise, the city, people are going to leave it. People are still coming here because we're a good community. We've let our buildings fall apart because we haven't spent the money on the things we need. And we don't have a plan as to do it. We're going to piecemeal it, we'll find piecemeal it, and we'll just figure it out as we go. Every 10 years, 20 years, we'll just piecemeal it again. I think we need to be better than that and actually do what we need to do and figure out the study and make a plan for this and actually implement the plan strategically, judiciously, and with the right common sense for financial wisdom come forward. We just cannot piecemeal this city together anymore. We've been doing it ever since the city was started. And it's about time we actually do something right.
Mr. Plocher.
You mentioned a building we redid that was built in the 1930s.
Yeah, it was built in the 30s.
Right.
Acquired,
So obviously, yeah,
repurposed.
something had to be done.
Yeah.
Eric, when was the park, or the public works building built?
The original was 74.
Okay. So, since 1974, nothing's changed in Yorkville?
Not much. I don't know, I was only 4 then.
So I would say, you're right, we do need a smart plan, but we know we need to do this. So let's hire the person that we just all agreed that we can hire, have them go, talk to Eric and the rest of us. What do we need in a public works building for the next 30, 40, 50 years? If you want to do something for long term, pick a building. the one that needed to be done in the 90s. That's my suggestion. I say we take the person we just hired and tell them to go over there and come up with a plan on that building. Look at what we got around town. If not, we'll find something else.
Other comments? Thank you all for the discussion. Mark?
If I can recap, let's see if we can get
Can
some.
you?
Maybe not well. So, and this will give us some direction. This has been a very good discussion for proceeding forward. Nobody wants to do the original scope as we proposed last year. Chris said he was okay with tweaking it, and I'm guessing that, yeah, if you're okay with that.
Reducing the time frame.
Okay.
Scope, yes.
Okay, so we will not be proceeding forward with the full master plan as we scope in 2019. Because that's one thing I think we've all agreed on. Two, everyone seems to be okay with us doing a separate study, the PD, and then the county sheriff. Okay, nodding heads there, that's two. Three, everybody agrees that public works is the immediate need as a facility. Whether that's part of a larger study or a smaller study remains to be seen, but public works needs to be addressed immediately. Okay, nodding heads, no objections. Okay. And then fourth, as we look to either a larger or a smaller study, we want it to be focused more on economics and what we can afford, then also studying the land use decisions that we have made and need to make for these facilities, and looking at asset management. So we have a roster of properties, and whether we need to unload them or to consolidate them or sell them for cash property elsewhere, simply as it relates to being able to site municipal facilities somewhere else or on those properties in the future. Okay, so that's like a focus of, you know, if we were to take the RFP, which I turned off the RFQ, turned off the projector there, that talked about interviewing people, assessing materials, security needs, building needs. Really, we're kind of saying we want to make sure that we have land to be able to build these things in the future, depending on how fast we grow, how big the buildings are, and then, you know, advise us with what we currently have as it relates to land more so than going vertical with the building.
One question, one clarification on with the plan with the sheriff's office. I thought I heard that the sheriff's office does not have plans to move forward with an expansion right now, correct?
I believe so.
They don't have anyone hired,
They don't have any immediate plans to do that, okay?
Correct.
With, similar to us.
Right, with that, if we move forward with the scope of the master plan, would we want to run that scope full linear, or would we want to wait on that, executing that plan with the sheriff's office? Just for the fact that there is no timeline with the sheriff's office, that's why I asked, is
Yeah.
do we start the one and then as needed, then we execute or pursue that potentially?
I think it's a good question, but until we talk further with the county,
I just don't want to say, you know, tomorrow we end up jumping into that one and then we're kind of potentially cart before the horse.
I get it, and that's,
I would like to.
I understand it, but we sometimes just gotta take a look at something.
The opportunity is in front of us. The political will is there on both sides. They have some assets in the building and the land. You know, there's a possibility you can share services. In my mind, I would say proceed forward with that one immediately. See if it's feasible. You know, if it works out that, I don't know, there's a law that says you can't do it, or it just becomes, you know, unclear that you're going to save any money, then, you know, you cut it off there. But in my mind, you know, in a couple months from now, start the RFQ process, see if we can pick an architect there, go to the county, say, hey, are you okay with this architect? You know, can you split the cost with us, get an IGA with them, and then work with the study.
Other questions, comments? Very good discussion. Both points, really. First one, just it was not clear, and I get it. I've been on the other side too. And this is good discussion too, so thank you all. I appreciate it. Okay, we took care of item number 2. We took care of the park board. Nothing from the planning and zoning commission. Mr. Frieder, do you have an update for us?
I have a short update and then a request of the council. Quick update is I've been continuing on with the National Suicide Prevention and Action Month proclamation. As we closed out 2019, I actually worked even closer with Hope of the Day, and my hope is to not only help out on the state-run task force to figure out the plan for the Illinois Suicide Prevention Task Force, but also to continue the NSPAN project. So the only thing that would change this year would be the words on the proclamation. Try to get it a little shorter so that some cities don't have any issues with editing their city name. If you did not know this, there are about 14 cities around the country that adopted the proclamation as the United City of Yorkville. So if we wanted to annex their properties, maybe that's an opportunity to discuss further. But my goal today and this evening was to ask for your blessing again, as I have in previous years, to continue the work that I did, just simply talking about suicide and proactive mental health, in the hopes that I never have to bury another friend, and we don't lose any other officers, we don't lose anybody else on the planet to their own hand. So that's my simple request. Are you guys okay with me continuing with the NSPAN proclamation? I apologize, the acronym was horrible, but that's what it is. So that's my only request.
Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Okay, any other members of the city council have anything? City clerk's report?
No report.
Community and liaison report? No. Anything else from staff? No? No reports? Okay. Additional business, I do have some additional items for consideration and not for discussion, because I didn't want to belabor that discussion. Two things to consider in regards to our previous discussion. I would like to sell the bank, so think about that. I would also like you to consider the property just across the street from Home Depot. I don't remember the name of the street, that's off of. We have about 8 acres here. We could build public works building there. We could build a city hall there. We could do nothing, or we could sell it. Some things to consider. Okay, that's all I had. Are there any other citizen comments?
Just on what you were saying too, we have that property behind Tower Name too, the house and the barn that we bought.
Yeah, we'll look at those as well, yeah, definitely. But those are the big two assets that I can come up with those two. But good point, and those are things we'll definitely discuss.
Especially if you're doing it in Tower Lane.
Yeah. Citizen comments? Thank you. We will skip executive session, nothing pressing, I can't wait until the next meeting. Unless anyone objects, I hear no objection.
Aye.
Is that a motion to adjourn? Second by Frieders, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Good meeting.
Thank you, Steve.
What?
I tried and I tried.
I